Our founding document in the United States founded our country based on freedom and the preservation of freedom and reclaiming that freedom after it's been stolen from us by a long train of abuses and usurpations by attorneys. So why do we never hear about a rule of freedom by anyone on television, by any Democrat, by any Republican, by any libertarian, by any lawyer, or by anyone who tries to talk about resolving the problems that we have in the United States? We are constantly assaulted with this rule of law nonsense, which is in direct opposition to the rule of freedom that established the United States. Law is an enemy of freedom, and we should never have allowed any law in our country. If you want to fully understand law, instead of believing the propaganda from TV and the lies that are shoved down your throat all day, every day by Democrats, Republicans, and controlled opposition liars on the internet, you have to go to the source. You have to go to the rules that Donald Trump follows, the rules that all the lawyers follow, and the rules that all the other Democrats and Republicans follow. Those rules are called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. They were not written by any Jews, as you're told on Wikipedia, which calls the whole thing a hoax. They were written by bankers. They were written by the families who own the Federal Reserve, the TV networks, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and the Bar Association. In fact, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion was actually dictated to the Rothschild family by Lucifer himself. And you'll see that by reading page 1. Here's what it says on page 1 about lawyers. What has restrained the beasts of prey called men? What has served for their guidance hitherto? In the beginnings of the structure of society, they were subjected to brutal and blind force. Afterwards, to law, which is the same force, only disguised. So Lucifer invented law and trained the lawyers to administer that brutal and blind force against humanity to keep us enslaved to the banksters. Now, who would use a phrase like, what has restrained the beasts of prey called men? Unless it was an alien like Lucifer, who sees humanity as lesser beings, as the slaves that the human race is, that was created to mine gold for Lucifer and the other Anunnaki, who came here about 400,000 or 500,000 years ago and made us a slave race. Is that too far-fetched for you? Would you rather listen to lies from Democrats or Republicans that tell you we have a rule of law and that this rule of law is a good thing? Our founders knew that we didn't have a rule of law. They knew that law was the enemy of humanity. That's why they created a country based on freedom. And that's why in the last paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, they absolved us from all allegiance to the British Crown. Now, they should have gone further and explained this. The British Crown owns the Bar Association. So we absolved ourselves from all allegiance to the Bar Association, which means we're not supposed to have any attorneys here. And we certainly aren't supposed to have any attorneys in our government, because attorneys were all created as enemies of humanity to keep us enslaved again to the bankers who own the Federal Reserve and the TV networks. So how are we going to bring back our rule of freedom and completely destroy this notion of a rule of law? Well, we need to start with TV. We have to get all the lawyer shows off of TV. We have to stop allowing lawyers on TV to say anything at all. We have to abolish law schools, abolish all the law books, ban the practice of law by lawyers. We have to establish freedom schools where we have intelligent people teaching people who are just coming out of college and might have a few brain cells left how to keep our freedom and how to maintain that freedom in spite of constant attacks by these enemies of humanity called attorneys, and in spite of constant attacks by the bankers who own the TV networks, brainwash the nation into being stupid enough to choose either enemy Democrat or enemy Republican in every election to run our country. And we have to set up a system in our country, not with attorney generals, but freedom generals, not with district attorneys. District freedom manager is what we need. And we certainly can't have attorneys working as judges in our courts to abuse us mercilessly. We have to have honest and intelligent people working as judges. People who know that freedom stands above everything else in this country. The number one issue in every election right now is freedom. Certainly not a rule of law. Certainly not nonsense like whether Russia interfered in our elections, which we all know is controlled by TV, and every election is rigged by TV. And we certainly don't have an issue of, whether taxpayers should buy birth control for poor women. If they're that poor, maybe they shouldn't have sex. Or maybe we shouldn't talk about such stupid nonsense. And maybe we should focus on reclaiming our freedom by removing the attorneys from our society entirely. We have to abolish their whole profession. We have to establish those freedom schools. And we're only going to do it by all of you opening your mouths and demanding that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence be followed to remove the enemy attorneys from every place in our government that they infest. They aren't supposed to be there. It's about freedom, people. Can you understand that? Do you know that you're always being lied to every time a Democrat, Republican, or lawyer opens their mouth? Every time. They are never telling you the truth. They are never going to address the real issues. The fact that attorneys are destroying our freedom, and the fact that the owners of the Federal Reserve, aided and abetted by every attorney and every scumbag attorney disguised as a judge in this country, is robbing every American. Can you get that through your heads and stop listening to Democrats, Republicans? Open your mouths. Tell them all to go to hell and take your freedom back. The people are the authorities. We have to all assert ourselves as such and bring our country back to what it was supposed to be. Thanks for watching.